Welcome back to DIY No Need to Cry with Ivelisse. DIY with paper napkin and Mod Podge, Fleur De Lis requested. All the materials that I used for this DIY are listed in the description box below. This bottle was requested by Rosa Andrade. Thank you for this fantastic request, Rosa. This one really had my creative juices flowing. My apologies for not being able to put this out last week, but this bottle took a lot of time to make. However, I think you will agree that this bottle makes up for last week's video and some. It has become one of my best pieces. When I was thinking of ideas for the Fleur De Lis, I thought of a family crest. That made me think of a royal family, kings and queens, which made me think of medieval times. That made me think of medieval goldsmiths who would make these lavish metal and gold pieces for their churches. That led me to think of over-the-top gold and metal works of art. I then had a picture in my mind of a very metallic, over-the-top, sculpted, bejeweled piece of treasure. And this is what came out of that creative thought process. Hope you enjoy. Let's get started. To begin, you will need a white paper napkin. This whole bottle is made with just paper napkins and Mod Podge. I used a pack of plain, cheap napkins you can get anywhere. Open it all the way up, separate the plies of paper. Wet your fingertips slightly if you're having trouble separating the napkin, as you see me do here. And crumple them both up real good. You want as many wrinkles as possible. This time we want all those wrinkles. Grab the bottle, a clean dry brush, and some Mod Podge, and glue the napkin all around the bottle. Just place some glue in a section and place the napkin on top. Keep placing glue in sections as you go along and place the napkin down. Do this until it's completely glued down. Now give it a top coat of Mod Podge and set it aside to dry. Make sure to get the top area down as well as the excess on the bottom. You can cut the bottom excess off first if you want. I like doing mine after. Let the whole thing dry and then continue adding napkin to the neck until it's covered. This bottle had a screw cap that I will be using to make the custom top, so I left that part that had the ridges without napkin. Trim any excess napkin if needed. Once the whole bottle is covered and dried, remove the excess napkin from the bottom with an X-Acto knife. In this next step, I started it on the table and then I realized I needed it to be on a bottle so that it would dry with the curve. So I went ahead and put it on a bottle. Using something to keep the bottle from rolling, I used my old egg containers flipped upside down. Place the bottle. I printed out the Fleur De Lis at 40% size. Cut around it, leaving an edge to tape down to the bottle. Using painter's tape, I taped the edges down. Cut a piece of parchment or wax paper the same size as the Fleur De Lis and tape that down on top. The idea is to use this as a guide to sculpt the piece I need for the front of the bottle. Taking pieces of white paper napkin and Mod Podge, I used it to sculpt out the Fleur De Lis. You can use anything for this. You don't have to do it this way. You can use clay, ceramic clay, molding paste, and anything else you can use to sculpt with. I like to use products I already have instead of buying more. If I can avoid buying it, I will. It should look something like this when you're done. Let that fully dry before peeling it off. I painted my bottle with white acrylic paint, but this step was pointless as I had to do it again to cover the rest of the pieces after I was done sculpting everything. So wait until you finish the whole bottle before doing this. Once the piece was dry, I glued it onto the bottle. You can see that curve I was talking about earlier. Now it will be easy to glue on and it won't crack from bending it. I used a lot of Mod Podge for this piece. I wanted to make sure it stayed glued down in every corner. Take some more napkins and separate the plies. Once the bottle was dry, I sculpted S-shaped designs, as you see here, all around it using the napkin and Mod Podge. Keeping it saturated with small amounts of glue as you go is the key to making this manageable. So you want to make sure the tissue is fully saturated as you sculpt and add little amounts of glue as you go to keep it from drying out. Here, I will show you how I sculpted the front of the bottle. Whatever I did to one side, I did to the other. I added flat back glass gems, as you see here, as fillers, so it wouldn't look so empty in those spots. Clean up any excess glue around it and then set it aside to dry. Continue sculpting the design with the napkin and Mod Podge in sections until the whole bottle is done. Here, I will show you how I sculpted the sides of the bottle. When you do this on each side of the bottle, it will link up in the back and create the whole look. This is what the back will look like when both sides are done. I then added these to the back. That's part of the neck. I'll show you how I got that later on. These are two more flat back glass gems I added. And this is what it should look like when it's all dry. For the neck, I made a loop in the front that went around the neck and created another loop in the back with the remainder of napkin. Trim any excess if needed. I then wrap the neck as you see here. Don't forget to keep adding glue as you go. I always added more glue on top and on the sides of each piece I sculpted once I was done to make sure it was smooth and secure. Now to make the custom top. Using a plastic refillable ball, also known as a clear ornament, glue both halves with E6000 and set that aside to dry. Using an X-Acto knife, I cut the little hanging bit off. And once again, do the same thing you did for the bottle. Separate the plies of napkin and then crumble them up to create wrinkles. For the ball, I ripped and glued pieces of the napkin until it was covered. Screw the cap back onto the bottle, and using your finger or the back of a brush, push down on it to create a dent. The reason I want to do this is so the ball sits better on it when I go to glue it. Unscrew the cap and glue the ball on top. Clean the excess glue from around it and then set it aside to dry. Finish adding the napkin until it's completely covered, including the cap. Using the same method as I did for the bottle, I wrap napkin all the way up the ball, continuing to connect a new piece of napkin with the previous one so it looked like one consecutive piece. After that dries, sculpt out the same S's as you did for the bottle in between the lines until the ball is completely covered. Here, I'll show you how I sculpted the ball design. Using a brush and white acrylic paint, paint the entire top. I painted the bottle and then decided to add some more napkin. Do this first and then paint the entire bottle with white acrylic paint. Once that's dry, paint the bottle with black acrylic paint and do the same thing to the entire top. Once those are dry, give them both a coat of polyacrylic to seal them. I've been unsatisfied with sealers in the past and keep trying new ones. I had this one saved from when I did my coasters, but I never used it. Instead, I used the Easy Cast, which I wish I hadn't because all my cups stick to them now. Anyways, one of you lovely gals, hey Mel, tested it on her crafts and loved it, so I gave it a go. So far, I love it, but we'll see when I use it to seal a lighter color bottle. Using Rub and Buff, which is a metallic wax, buff it into the entire bottle. I use my bare hands, but you might want to use some gloves when doing this. I get so into it when I'm crafting that I forget to be safe. I just be in my zone, but I need to remember to be safe, so use gloves when doing this. A little goes a long way, so don't squeeze a lot out, trust me. Do the same to the top. After you've done that, using a napkin, I buffed off all the excess metallic wax. Concentrate on the flat parts mostly, as you'll see me add more wax back onto the raised parts later on. Right here, I was concentrating on the wrong part, but I realized that later on and added it back on. So leave the raised parts alone after placing the metallic wax on them. Buff the excess off the flat parts only. And here you see me adding it back on. This was my first time using this stuff, so it was trial and error. No big deal, that's how we learn. Once you're done with the wax, seal both the bottle and top with one more coat of polyacrylic. I don't think it's required, but I knew I was going to handle the bottle while adding all those rhinestones, and I was afraid that the heat from my hands would reactivate it and make it rub off. And finally, adding all the rhinestones. Here I show you the exact colors and where I placed them on the front of the bottle. I have also labeled them with the size. Next, I added the 2mm clear and red around the neck and top part. When placing all the tiny 2mm rhinestones, I alternated between the color and clear. I did that with every color. Here, I show you how I did it. I placed 2mm blue and clear as shown here. Once I reached the green, I continued with the 2mm green and clear until that entire part was done. This picture shows you all the colors for the 2mm rhinestones. And here I show you the rhinestone sizes and colors for the Fleur De Lis. This is the bottle with all the rhinestones added as I showed you. This is the sides and the back. Follow the same steps as the front. So here you see the 9mm colors and placements. After placing these, place the corresponding 2mm color alternating between that color and 2mm clear. Do this to the entire bottle. This is what it should look like when finished. For the top, I placed random 9mm colors as shown here and outlined it the same way I did with the bottle, with the 2mm rhinestones, except I only did the inside of the swirls. I cannot tell you how happy I was when I placed that last rhinestone and screwed the top into the bottle. But it was truly a labor of love. I enjoy the process of creating. When you see something you have in your mind start to form in front of you, there's just something about that amazes me every time. Don't ever be afraid of trying something new and different. This is not my usual style. Of course, I incorporated my style into it anyways, but it's still out of my comfort zone. And look at how this bottle turned out. It's exactly how I pictured it in my head. So always try new things, be creative, and remember, there is no wrong way when creating. Here's some closer footage, but I wish y'all could see it in person because as usual, the camera's not doing it any justice. Okay, here we go. This is a little better. Oh my goodness, so pretty! Okay. In all seriousness, let me know what you guys think. I feel like this is one of those things that people are either going to love or completely hate. Let me know, and if you do like it, please don't forget to thumbs up the video as it helps me a ton. As always, thank you all for watching. And if this is your first time watching, I hope you consider subscribing to get updates on future videos. And remember, do it yourself. There's no need to cry.